Right here on your number one urban music station, Y107.9 FM. Time checks exactly 11 after 10. And as promised, Honorable Kojo Nkrumah is with us this morning for our budget review. And I'm just finding out this morning he's called Vincent. Yes. Yeah, right. We're all surprised.
That's just for Sundays.
It's for Sundays, right? Guys, we're here for business. We have a brief business, as a matter of fact. So yesterday, the budget was read, by Dr. Ato Hayford, Kessel Ato Hayford, and a few things went down. By chance, you missed what the details were. I think I did a review on it earlier. You might want to just look it up online as well and get all the details. We're here this morning for a review. Okay, a review on what the budget entails, Honorable's opinion on the kind of things that were captured in the budget, all that. But don't forget, we're live on Twitter, X, Y1079 FM. We're live on our Facebook, Y1079 FM. Instagram, we're live on there as well. Make sure you check us out. Drop a comment or like in there. By chance you have a question for Honorable, please feel free to send it to us. We might open the phone lines and get interactive on there as well. So Honorable is the current Member of Parliament. He actually retained a seat for Afoase Ayirebi. He's a ranking member of the Economic Planning Committee for the Parliament, representing the minority side. We're going to get into deets on all that, but this man has been on radio before, so this is his turf. I mean, I think yesterday when we shared the artwork, people were wondering why Honorable Kojo Nkrumah. Because why not? First and foremost, the idea is to get the first reactions on the budget. It's a news, a fresh government, and it was wise to get somebody from the opposition party to come, and who better to speak to than Honorable. Honorable has had years of experience when it comes to radio and journalism. He's actually someone with a good, he's actually well versed when it comes to economics. He knows his accounts, he knows his finances, and so we're basically bringing him here this morning to speak on things that are related to the budget. It's YFM. Money is what we want. Young people need money. They have money, and whatever it is that is captured in the budget, will affect your money. And so it's very, very important for us as a station to have conversations like this. In the course of the week, I beg your pardon, we shall have some more. For people who are not very familiar with Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, as a Ghanaian politician and lawyer, Member of Parliament for Afoase Ayirebi constituency. Previously served as Minister of Information from November 2018, and later as Minister for Works and Housing during the MPP tenure of office. He started his career as a Treasury analyst at British American Tobacco back in 2006. He moved, to Joy FM as a broadcast journalist hosting the Super Mid-Morning Show. In 2014, he bowed out of broadcasting to establish an investment firm, West Brownstone Capital. By 2016, he had become a lawyer practicing at the Kolendi, Atafua, and Amponsa at law. He was selected as one of the world's 150 young global leaders for 2020 by the World Economic Forum. So I'm sure now you know why he's here. Good morning, Honorable, and welcome back to home.
Rev, how are you doing?
I'm splendid. I'm awesome this morning. It's good to have you on here.
It's good to be here.
Somewhere else. Good morning. Now, I want us to start off by talking about your new role. I think the announcement was made last week, if I'm correct.
Yes.
The role of the Parliament Economic and Development Committee. What's the team about? What are you set out to do?
So, there are three arms of government. There's the executive branch where, things get done, where we do a number of things. We make laws, but we're also responsible for the country's money.
Okay.
So we decide who can charge what money and who should be given what money. And when that money is made available, we supervise and ensure that it's being used well. So that's called the power of the purse. We also do what they call deliberations. So things will come up, and if you want the country to talk about it, the country will send 276 people into one chamber to go and discuss it. So that's where national deliberations take place. Now, when it comes to the way we supervise the work of the executive, we divide ourselves into committees.
Yeah.
So the Economic Committee is one of the committees in Parliament.
Okay.
To help supervise the work of the executive. And our job is to supervise the economic work of the executive. So all that, let's say, John Mohammed's government will do about the economy, It is my committee's job to supervise and to hold him to account for delivering on the economy. That's essentially what we do.
And it's made up of members from the minority and majority.
And the majority side. So I have a chairman who is from the majority side. I am the, for want of a better expression, chairman from the minority side, but we call it ranking, the ranking member from the minority side.
That's lovely. Wish you the very best in that capacity.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We look forward to some greatness, as always. Now, yesterday after the minister's presentation of our budget, our engagements and Vox Pop interactions on the street revealed that many people, still don't understand the process of government's budgeting and where the money comes from, all that. It's in this light that I would like us to start off our conversation before we go into the details of the budget yesterday. I want to understand, how does the entire budget system work from planning to approval? I mean, what are the stages for the average listener?
So the budget is one part of two instruments that the government uses to run the economy. It is the economic policy, that's one part, and then the budget. The two come together to help us run the economy. What usually happens is that a government will set an economic vision. What do we want for the economy of this country? And they'll come up with all the things they want to do. And there are parts of that set of things they want to do that have to be paid for by the government. Other parts may be paid for by other people, private sector, etc. So the parts that the government will pay for, that is the budget. So essentially, when a government comes to parliament, it will come with an economic policy and a budget. Now, how it works is that usually you will do a lot of consultations with various aspects of the society, and you will come to your understanding of what you think the people need. You will marry that with your party's philosophy and vision, and then you will develop what you call the big economic policy. So here at YFM, you have your own policy or plan or game plan or what you want to achieve this year.
On programming,
etc. So programming, revenue, IT systems, etc. You put all of that together into your, let's say, your business plan for the year. That is what we will call the economic policy for the country. And then there are parts of it which now have to be funded. So your head of finance guy will now say, okay, we'll spend X amount of money on buying new computers and Y on refurbishing this and yada, yada, yada. So that becomes the budget. But in the government context, what happens is that government must make money and spend money. So government makes the money through two instruments, taxes and loans. And then the combination of the taxes and loans is what government will now spend. So, for example, if you said that you wanted, let's say, 4G, 5G right 5G,
now. Yes.
4G is becoming obsolete. If you said you wanted 5G free all over this Legon City Mall area, it will take some spending to make that happen.
To get that.
So let's say that's 100,000 CDs to be able to provide 5G free here at Legon cities. What it means is that government has to raise 5 million, tax a bit,
and borrow
a bit, and then government has to deliver on it. So essentially, the process of budgeting is going around and asking the people, what do you need? You marry that with your own understanding of what the people require, your own philosophy, and then you come up with what must be done. And then when you come up with that which must be done, you have to find the money to make it happen.
Now, with that cleared, you've been in the business for a while, the business of governance. What are some of the common misconceptions people have about budgets that you've heard? Let's pick maybe two.
So I think one of the first things is that people are of the view that government is rich. Government has money.
Is the government rich?
No, government is not rich. The government doesn't have any money. Government literally every year spend money. So everything that we want from government has to raise the money and then spend the money. One of the misconceptions I've seen, people go around with is, oh, government is rich. Maybe Charlie do this for us. Government must be able to do it. Government doesn't have money. Government has to raise the money or borrow the money and then spend the money to be able to do that particular thing which we are looking for. It's one of the major misconceptions that I have seen when it comes to budgeting and economic policy development.
In the past, I mean, I don't want to believe it's because of the advent of technology, but then all we'd see, growing up, the budget is out. We don't know the details. Now people are very engaged.
That's true.
Yes, the attention on, people understanding what the budget is about, knowing the details is up. It's high so much that the government itself finds the need to get it closer to the people. In your opinion, we're all young people. How important, or why is it important for the youth to engage in budget decisions, budget discussions in particular, and decision making when it comes to how we make the money and how we spend the money?
Because young people are very interested in seeing their society, advance.
Yeah.
In fact, young people have a higher stake in the society than anybody else. We're going to be around, God willing, for the next number of years. More than some other persons. And so you find that young people get more agitated, more interested. Charlie, why is this one not working? Why is this one this way? Let's demonstrate, let's do this, let's do that. But young people also have to understand what it takes to deliver the public goods and services that we are looking for. And actually what it takes to deliver is the economic policy and budget. So for all the energy and excitement that we have, we must understand what developing it and holding ourselves accountable for executing it. That's why I think it's very important.
Lovely. Now let's go to business. So after the budget was read, we listened. There's been so many reactions from the youth, government agencies, reps, members of parliament. I saw videos, people trying to explain it. What is your overall assessment of, yesterday's budget in terms of feasibility, potential impact? Sorry.
No, it's okay. Let's go.
In terms of its impact and feasibility, I think my main focus is on feasibility. Is it realistic?
Realistic is a subjective concept.
Okay.
They used to say some time back that, this is not rocket science.
Yeah.
But now
it's
Musk
actually,
has actually even cracked rocket science.
Yeah.
So realistic for me is a very, very
feasibility.
Subjective argument. I think what we should do is to ask ourselves whether the budget has the potential to deliver on the aspirations of young people, a stable, functioning society, so that they can achieve their own aspirations. Not every young person wants to be boxed into a particular area that go and do this, go and do that. But what young people want the most is a stable, functioning society so that they can achieve their own aspirations, their own creativity, their own ingenuity, their own ideas, what they want to self-express can come out. So the question for me is, does this budget, does this economic policy create what one of the people I admire very much for young people to find expression for their dreams and their aspirations in society? And I say this not because I am in the MPP or because I'm in the opposition, but I say this because the government itself has admitted it. The answer is no. And I'll show you where the government has admitted it. You see, at the end of the day, you have to be able to measure success. Are we getting closer to meeting the people's aspirations? So here at YFM, one of the ways by which you measure whether the company is flourishing is profit. So you will look at your profit numbers and say, okay, 2024, we made profit of 1,000 cedis. If we want to see whether or not this company is meeting the aspirations of the stakeholders, 2025, if for nothing at all,
we should make something beyond that.
If for nothing at all, we should even just keep the 1,000.
Keep the 1,000.
True. Major things we measure is growth.
Okay.
So growth is what measures year on year how is the society expanding? How is it creating more opportunity to find jobs, to find self-expression? Now, if you put all the MPP government did together, for all the difficulties we went through and the way young people bash, we say, this government, the way they do, we don't like you, we grew this whole country by 5.7%. So if you measure on a scale of 100, the statisticians measure and say that we moved this country forward by 5.7%. Yesterday, when the finance minister came to parliament, he says that for all their ideas and all the things that they want to do, when they put it together, they are going to retrogress to 4.4%. That's why I say the fact that they have admitted is that they are going to do worse than the one that you said was not good enough in 2024. And if I sum that up, it tells me that this economic policy and budget will not deliver on the aspirations of young people as much as the last one did. It will do something. It will move us to 4.4. But you notice that the 4.4 is a drop from the 5.7. And for me, that is the biggest measure. That at the end of the day, if the last MD of YFM, Charlie, that guy, no know the job, he be young guy, make we clear, make we bring a new team, did nice adverts, everything. See if Jet. The way he come the interview, shudder, everybody like him, say, this guy be cool guy. We give him the job. He says that the 1,000 profit the last MD did, he can't do 1,000. He's going to do 800. You ask yourself whether or not he's delivering on the aspirations of the stakeholders of the business or not. And that is why I say that the fact which they have admitted in Parliament yesterday is that they are going to move us back to 4.4, and they have admitted that we left 5.7. That's the big aspirations on young people.
Okay, now you mentioned aspirations of healing, I don't want to see the pinch, rising cost of living, things are going up.
The pinch, my brother.
There are a bunch of things that are under budget cutting, in reducing certain taxes, in clearing some. I think all these, in my opinion, are to ease the lives of, the average young person, like you mentioned. Don't you think it's a good sacrifice to have the figures drop from 5.1 like you mentioned? Because obviously if we're going to ease things and not make it very tight and strict, doesn't that mean we're going to lose a bit of what we are supposed to make in terms of profit, like you mentioned? Isn't that a right step?
So in economics, what happens is that when you that they grow faster. So when I refer to President Kufuor and what he called the enabling environment, the enabling environment are the things around us, the taxes, all of those constraints, regulations, etc. When you deregulate or when you loosen things, what it's supposed to do is that it's supposed to make it easier for people to produce more, do more, self-express, and therefore grow more, not rather grow less. Actually, economics shows that when you pile up taxes and you constrain people and you are trying to overregulate, Charlie, make everybody, people can't express, people can't function, creativity doesn't go on, so people don't go for it. So let me give you an example. When President Mahama was leaving power in 2016, because of the constraints and the difficulties, remember there was high levels of doomsday. So people couldn't even get electricity to do their own business. That's when people were doing demonstration, doomsday must stop and all of those ones. There were high levels of taxes, high levels of regulation. So it constrained the economy. So growth was about 3.4. That was how the economy was growing. 2017 to 2020, when the MPP came to power at first, one of the first things we did was that we removed 17 taxes in one budget. Charlie, that day abuzu kind of way people clap for we. If you don't get girls, you go get some. Everybody was excited. They've removed all the taxes. They are freeing things. It was easier to do business. And we started moving to 7%, average 7%, because now people were finding it easier to import, to do their own gig. Somebody wants to import hair. Somebody wants to do all those taxes had been removed. Things were going easy. And the economy was growing. Unfortunately, problems came. Now, sometimes when you say, COVID, Russia, they say, get out, don't say that one, it's not true. But let me show you something. Do you remember the time when we said lockdown?
Yes.
So lockdown, I'm sure you've seen that video where the guy is coming from Kaswa to Accra and the policeman says, are you in Ewutu Senya East, and that your case has fallen flat? That was the time when we constrained the economy again. We said everybody should stay home. Children shouldn't go to school. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do it. It constrained the whole economy. So the economy that was growing now at 7% year on year, that's the speed at which it was moving. It now came to less than 1%. So if you look at 20, growth came down to about 0.9. And once growth came down, you see, government, I told you earlier that government is not rich. Government doesn't have money.
They spend the money they make.
Government spends the money they tax and they borrow.
And then they borrow.
So what ended up happening was that government now, in the COVID period, having spent, Charlie, free water, come for it, free electricity, it was all expenditure. Government didn't have the money because you had constrained the economy. Nobody was really working and making much money. So taxes were not coming. And I told you that there are two ways government makes money. You either tax or you do what? You borrow. So when government constrained the economy and the revenues were not coming, what government had to do was to borrow.
Okay.
So government borrowed, like Trump would say, bigly to sustain the expenditure. And then when we went out of COVID by the following year, government said, now to pay back the borrowing, I have to introduce some taxes. So government, for example, brought a tax called COVID tax. People say, but COVID is gone, why are we paying tax? It's because we had borrowed heavily and we had to go and pay back. So we introduced COVID tax, we introduced e-levy, we introduced betting tax, we introduced some taxes to try and it started constraining the economy some more. So growth was struggling. The economy, the pinch that you were talking about, people were not feeling it. By 2023 to 2024, we're now beginning to pick up. We're now servicing all of those loans we are taking, and things are now beginning to open up a bit. It is that one that now the statistical service says that, by 2024 December, the economy had picked up a bounce again. It was now opening up again at 5.7. And that's why Baumian said earlier that if he comes to power in 2025, he doesn't need those taxes anymore. He can scrap it. The economy will feel freer and we can go faster. So those interventions constrain the economy. And now what you're expecting will happen in this new budget is that they will remove those constraints so that we can function better. The problem is that in this budget, they have actually removed 2 taxes. They tell us it's 6, but it's 2 if you go into the details. And then they've introduced 4 taxes through the back. So the effect is that it's constraining the economy again. And that is why when the experts run their numbers, the experts tell them that no, you are going to slow it down to 4.4 because the measures you are introducing, you are constraining the enabling environment. That is the reality of what is happening now. And that's why I say that the data that they have admitted is that it won't be even up to what happened the last one, 4.4 against 5.
So now let's backtrack a bit. You mentioned the COVID period when things were basically restricted for our own safety. The government had to obviously borrow some more and then introduce new taxes to pay for that. But in that period, people were still paying taxes.
Of course, but
weren't they?
Yeah, of course. But you see, so if let's say somebody was going to the market and was doing turnover, as in sales, of 400,000 the year before and was paying taxes, let's just use 10% of that 400,000. Okay, that'll be like 40,000.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we have constrained and people are no longer going to work, students are not going to school, things have slowed down. He's not going to do sales of 400,000. He's now probably going to do sales of 150,000 for the year. And he'll still pay taxes 10%. But now that 10% is no longer 40,000. That 10% is now 15,000. But this is the time when the government has increased expenditure. Free water, free electricity, free affected by COVID, allowances to the nurses and other people who were doing it, teachers who didn't even go to school to teach, everybody got paid, police people got paid, everybody, even in America, they were fair, of course. But you see, whenever you slow down an economy, picking it up is not that easy. The economy doesn't pick up at the same rate at which it was when you shut it down. So
I think close to 3.
Yeah. By the time you were done, the economy was not going to pick up. Like people had lost customers, people had, lost opportunities, people had lost contracts, etc., etc. So it had a tailing effect on the economy. I'm saying that the constraints we put on it were the reasons for which the pinch was there. And so now that we're out of the constraints, we are in a place where we have to remove, or now that we're out of those challenges, we have to remove those constraints so that the economy can grow faster than even the 7% that we were doing. The last number is 5.7. Our estimate was that if we were in power and if we had removed these constraints that we had advertised in our manifesto, this year we should be doing close to 8%. But what the new government has brought, when they took it to Ghana Statistical Service and Finance Ministry and Bank of Ghana, Statistical Service, Finance Ministry ran the numbers, they said the thing they've done is going to end up bringing them down to 4.4. I didn't say it.
Yes. So my point is, so these are the numbers, these are projections that have been made, right? My point is, if the projection from the past government was going to take us beyond what they had left off, and they were going to take some of the restrictions off, the constraints were going to be taken off, it means clearly we were going to have some form of relief.
Yes.
But the current government, even through yesterday's budget that was reviewed, mentioned that we had left off a lot of debts. Okay. Will you agree that we can't make the number that is projected because of the debt that was inherited from the past government, aside the several payments that we had to make through the new taxing policies that were introduced to help us pay faster? Don't you think it's because of the debts that were made?
It is in the midst of those debts that, first of all, we grew 5.7. The debts are going to be less.
And that's because we were taking the taxes that are being scrapped off now.
Yes. But now that the debts are less, you can't grow less, because now you have less debt. Because we've paid off some of those debts.
But there's
now,
a huge chunk sitting down to be paid still.
There was a huger chunk.
You met.
Yes. Now, you have less debt. So now you free up the economy, let the economy function, take away the constraints. The guy who was doing 400,000 sales, you take it away, he will end up doing like 500,000. Then you can still get your 10% of that 50,000, and then you can be paying some of those debts as well. The challenge is that what this government has done in this budget is that they've introduced 4 more taxes and taken away only 2. So the constraints are still there. Because of those constraints, the pinch you talked about earlier, that is why when the people run the numbers, they say it won't grow as fast as even what we did. And that is why I'm saying then it won't deliver on the aspirations of young people as much as they wanted. We have time. I'm sure by the end
exactly.
Of
That's what I was going to
hold on. I'm sure by the end of this year, young people themselves will see that, okay, apparently all of these taxes are still around, or these new taxes that have been brought in. Of course, some of the taxes that have been taken off are like very good. They are a relief to people.
Like?
Oh, the e-levy, for example. We advertised that in 2025, we'll no longer be taking it as part of the constraints that we are taking out.
And that was because it was going to, at that point, it would have served the purpose it was supposed to serve.
COVID, for example, we advertised this one. We also advertised betting, that we're going to take these 3 out. That was the time that people were saying, if he can remove all of these things, why doesn't he remove it now? Have you realized that when Jomama came to power from 7 January till now, those taxes are still there? Why hasn't he removed it? It's because the fiscal framework had been done and locked in Parliament. It's been passed as a law. Until the fiscal year has run out and you've passed a new budget, you can't remove it. By that time, Charlie, then when would they talk? Nobody they listen with. But now you realize that President Mahama is in office, but these taxes are still here. He's not been able to remove them yet. It is only after his budget is approved that he can remove them. In fact, if it was true, then the question would be true now that, but Mahama, why doesn't he clear all of those taxes now?
Like you mentioned, it's a process.
Yes, it's a process. But you see, the same thing we said some months back, is this the same thing they apply now? So yes, we have to go through the process. And like you said earlier, a lot of people sometimes don't understand these things. We have to explain for people to understand.
Small businesses are vital, okay?
Brutal.
Yes.
In fact, the majority of businesses are small businesses.
Yes. The previous administration, started You Start initiative under the, Ghana Care program, which was to ease constraints, the ones you mentioned, for existing and aspiring young entrepreneurs. Now, it's been cancelled. In addition to the one district, one factory, and others. But, there's been an introduction of the Big Push Initiative, which is also a target for strategic infrastructure projects, stimulating growth, and, of course, creating jobs. In your opinion, what do you think of this restructuring? Do you think young entrepreneurs are captured enough and captured well enough in the Big Push Initiative to enable them thrive well in it?
What I'm going to say is going to be a bit controversial.
Let me hear you.
From my economics background, the best help you can give small businesses is not so much in some of these flagship programs. It's in creating what we call the enabling environment. You see, if you are living in an economy where every month fuel prices are going up, every 3 months electricity bills are going up, every month transport fares are going up, where inflation is going up, where you can't get capital or credit from a bank, and even if you got, the interest rate is going up. All these programs, they won't do anything for you. The biggest help you can give small businesses is to create what they call the enabling environment, to bring inflation down, to help ensure that fuel prices are not skyrocketing every now and then, so that people can predict. I've got a job, my pay is 4,000 cedis. So I've calculated that my rent, maybe 1,000, my transport, another 1,000, then what I go chop and other things I put in it. So by the end of the other month, fuel prices are going up, and transport bills are going up, and food prices are changing. It becomes unpredictable for me.
Exactly. To know
and to do business and to survive. So the biggest help you can give me is to stabilize the economy, bring inflation down, bring interest rates down, make it easier for me to access capital or credit for my business. The lights are on so that whatever business I'm doing, I can function. I don't need to buy fuel next 2 weeks for generator and all of those things. So the enabling environment is the biggest help you can give small businesses. That is where we have had some challenges over the period.
Yes.
If I look into the budget that was just read yesterday, my worry is that the things that create the enabling environment, the government is not attending to it. You listen to the budget as well as some of your colleagues. I'm not sure you heard any clear strategy that the government rolled out that is going to ensure that electricity bills don't keep going through the roof. In fact, the minister announced that every 3 months electricity bills will go up. The English he used was called quarterly adjustments. The simple version is that every 3 months electricity bills will go up. So that problem which young people want solved, this budget, the minister also increased gas prices. Why that is important is that, you know, the IPPs who produce power for us, they use industrial gas to produce. Now, once the gas, because the MPP was subsidizing the gas, so though the electricity bill sometimes was going up, it was going up at a lower rate because we were subsidizing the gas. So now he's removed the subsidy. So they are going to go up, but now going to go up at a higher rate. So if you take energy prices, for example, which is one of the things that young people, small businesses need attended to, is going to go up. Take fuel. You notice that between January and now, fuel has gone up, I think, at least about 3 times.
Yes.
So you're expecting that the government will roll out a program that will slow down because young people, small businesses need fuel prices to be stable. We rolled out a program we called Gold for Oil, which was supposed to help slow down the rate at which fuel prices are going up. Even that one, fuel prices were still sliding.
Why?
Because fuel is a global commodity, which is priced on the world market. So when they go and buy it at $10 and they bring it and they convert it to cedis and sell to us, and tomorrow there's a small fight between Ukraine and Russia.
It's going to affect that.
And because that is where a lot of gas and fuel is produced, the supply goes down, but demand is high. So price rises. It's no longer $10. It's now $12 or $14. By the time the fuel gets to Ghana, it's not $10. It's now $14. So fuel prices will go up. If me as information minister, I come and say Russia, Ukraine, the people won't beat me safe. They don't want to hear.
You see, honorable.
Hold on. I want to level with you.
I understand you. Yeah.
So you notice that fuel prices was that there were 2 things causing the fuel price increase. One was the global price. The other one was the exchange rate, because we use dollar to buy the fuel. So we said, can we arrest or try and contain the exchange rate depreciation? So we brought gold for oil. Gold for oil, essentially what it is that we are reducing and we are rather spending gold. So we use cedis to buy gold from the small scale miners.
With gold, basically.
And then we pay with gold because gold is a global dollar commodity, and use that gold to buy our oil. So that at least that side of the problem, we solve it. The $10 to $14 because of Russia and Ukraine, we can't do much about it. But the depreciation side, we can. The government has now come to power, the new government, and says they've cancelled gold for oil. What is going to happen is that the exchange rate side is going to start slipping. As for the price out there, you can't control it. But the exchange rate side, So already it has gone up 3 times before they removed the gold for oil. Now that they've removed it, my fear is that it will go up a bit more. So I'm saying to you that what small businesses need the most is a stable environment. If energy prices are going up, if fuel prices are going up, transport fares will go up.
Honorable, so
food prices will
automatically go up as well.
Once inflation starts going up, the banks, they look at inflation and they use it to determine their exchange rate.
Exactly.
Their interest rate. Then the cost of credit will also start going up. So the most important thing, the enabling environment. It's not these programs, big push, all of those ones. And remember, we've been in government before. We've made some mistakes before. There were programs that we brought up, it didn't work. Or if it worked, it didn't deliver even for many people.
Do you think the one district, one factory worked?
That one worked. It did well. But something like the one village, one dam, it didn't succeed.
Was it just a mere promise?
No, it wasn't. We executed it. There were dams that we dug across, but by the dry season, the dams were dry.
I believe, you mentioned something very important. I don't know what's wrong with our throats today.
I know, right?
Maybe the devil is working. But I believe when plans are made, and you mentioned that in the beginning, that the economic policies that drive the budget, drives how they're supposed to be spent. Are there not, you mentioned that research goes into these decisions that come up. Years ago, some were outlined in our budget as to the success of it. My question for you is, aren't these things projected with proper counsel from the right people? Are there some parts of it that are
challenges? There are some that at the time of conceptualization is not well conceptualized. There are some that are well conceptualized, but the execution is a problem. So here at YFM, you can come up with some events that you want to do, and sometimes the ideation of that event is not well thought through. And by the time you're executing, you have problems. I'm sure if you are being honest, you will remember some events that you did. At the end, the event was Yawa. It didn't go well.
Well, not YFM.
Well. Then times there are events or programs that, Charlie, on paper, if you look the artwork,
I get you.
Charlie, brutal. You put the MC on stage, and the guy who's supposed to handle the sound and other things, execution,
Yawa,
goes bass. There are problems there. So there are different levels of these things. And I'm saying to you that it's not even those programs you come up with and whether they are thought through and whether they succeed or they know. The most important thing, I'll take you back to President Kufuor, I'll take you back to the philosophy of the MPP, is the enabling environment. If you don't handle these things well, the enabling environment well, small businesses and young people will not survive. So to answer your question,
yes,
it's not so much about the big push and Women's Bank and those ones. It's the enabling environment. If you create an enabling environment, people will excel.
Did the plans that were put in place by the previous government ease things up really?
In the first 3 years, the evidence is that it eased things up a bit. And inflation came down to single digit. Growth went up to about 7%. About 2.3 million new people registered at SNIT that they have got jobs. That is the closest evidence we have to job creation. I could go on and on with other parameters that will show you that that's where 2020 we had challenges. Things got out of gear. It took us about 2.5 to 3 years to get a grip of the challenges that we were having. But at the time when you explain the challenges, like I told you, nobody won't hear you. They won't beat you safe. When the recovery started, 2023 to 2024, today the new government has come to admit that it's true. The economy came back 5.7 at the end of 2024. The productivity in the economy, though the government was targeting 1 trillion Ghana cedis, they even exceeded that. We ended up with 1.2 trillion Ghana cedis. That is now the result. So now all the propaganda that Charlie, the economy was criminally managed, is a crime scene, now the evidence is that that is not true. Okay, put that aside. We've been voted out. It's not a problem. It's a democracy. What matters now is what is the program of the new government for the next 4 years? And how does that program do better than 5.7, than 1.2 trillion, than 2.3 million jobs? That is what matters now.
Will you agree that, back to it, I think you might want to drink some water.
Charlie.
Yes. Guys, if you have a question for Honorable, kindly send it through WhatsApp, 0202222073. People are trying to 0202222073. People are trying to call. I beg you. We're not answering calls now. Just send a text. The team will pick it up. You can put yours on Twitter as well, Y107. You can put yours on Twitter as well, Y107.9 FM. One of these lozenges brands you get at us now, please. Hurry up. We need help. Honorable, so back to it. My question on this before we move on to the next is, so you've clearly mentioned the rate at which the economy grew. The numbers, you put the numbers to it. You've basically touched on the kind of easing the government is trying to do with removing the constraints through taking out some. My question to you is, must it always be My question to you is, must it always be growth in terms of figures, or the life terms of figures, or the life of the average Ghanaian matters? Can't we face the reality now and say, you know what, these are the kind of things we had to pay for. We need to now really face it and start paying things as it is, taking out the taxes that were meant to pay for the debts we had accumulated, of course, taking on the new taxes and paying for them on the go so that we do not have to incur some more in the next year. Can't we do that?
But that is what is all reduced to the figures we are talking about.
Exactly my point.
You see, the way economists answer this question is that we reduce it to figures. Then you can measure the figures. That's one. Number two, if you have a debt, there's not much you can do than to raise revenue to
just to pay it, so you can still ease yourself on the go with what you make.
Absolutely. So you have to balance that. In economics, there's a term called equilibrium.
Equilibrium, yes.
You have to balance that, however, with the quality of lives of the people. Else, then you have a president who will say, in fact, it happened recently in Kenya, where the president came up with a program that Charlie want to build houses for people, want to do this, want to do that. Therefore, we are going to tax everybody like this and do that. You saw the demonstrations there because the balance was not right. And so after a while, the government itself pulled back and said, okay, we wanted to do so much, and that's why we were going for all of these taxes. Now, we can't do all of this thing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to cut back on these things and cut back on the taxes. So it's an equilibrium thing that you have to balance. This government, in trying to strike equilibrium, is saying that they are removing 6 taxes
and introducing.
No. They're saying that they are removing 6 taxes to create an enabling environment so that the economy will grow. And they submitted that plan, I told you, to Statistical Service, to Finance, to BOG. When they looked in the plan, they realized that they have actually removed 2 taxes, not 6. And they have introduced 4 at the back. And so it is layering more constraints on the economy. And therefore, they cannot do better than the 5.7. That's why they are projecting that they will do 4.4.
So as against the projected, figures as to what is really existing, it shows that the constraints are going to go high. That's why we're hitting the numbers.
That's why you are not hitting. As against what we advise to Ghanaians, that we will remove 3 taxes, but we will not introduce some through the back door. We are rather going to cut the expenditure. So let me give you an example.
So you can still pay and then...
Yeah. So I'll give you an example like what happened in Kenya when President Ruto tried to do so many things. And, Charlie, we'll do road for here, we'll do house for here. Every young person, there's, that. He had to tax the people. And you've said that this finance bill, the Gen Z riots in Kenya, they are like, this finance bill is taxing us too much. The constraints are too much. We say we want a better Kenya. But the thing you want to deliver, the way you want to tax us, Masa, you go kill us. So there were riots. People died. Later, the government pulled back. He sacked some of the ministers. He adjusted things, and things calmed down. In the 2025, what we in economics will call fiscal framework, that's the skeleton of the budget, the skeleton before they put the numbers in. We said that we will remove those 3 taxes. If we remove those 3 taxes, it's going to cost us about 7 billion a year. But removing those taxes also means that we should cut expenses, just like what happened in Kenya.
Yeah.
And we said we're going to cut by 3% of GDP. That's about 30 billion. So if you read our manifesto, if you listen to Baumia at the UP, so we'll cut by 3% of GDP so that we give the things that should have been done, we give it to the private sector that rather than private sector should do. So government will not force itself to tax the people to do. Our colleagues in the NDC also campaigned that e-levy is a bad tax, remove it, COVID, remove it, betting, remove it. Okay. And then when they came to power, they have only removed 2. The third one, COVID, they say they are going to do consultation with IMF to see how they should handle it. But today they are reporting in the news that they have removed 6 taxes. It's not true. It's 2. Then they have introduced 4 taxes at the back. And that is what is constraining or is going to constrain the economy some more. And so the enabling environment you are looking for, we won't get what we were looking for. That's why in the end we'll be doing 4.4. And so the quality of life that you are looking for, the ease of doing business might not be occasioned. That's the reality that we're having to face.
And these are all economic projections based on...
Yes.
Is there a chance it might, by some miracle...
There is a chance. But like I said, it's about how you deliver. But already, why economists model is that when you so, for example, you know that if you drink alcohol, it will have a certain consequence on your sense of presence, etc. It's science. Okay? Economics is a social science.
Yes, a social science.
So we are also able to model that, listen, if you do this and do this and do this, this is most likely the consequence. That's why they are able to predict that you're going to get about 4.4.
Now, my last question on that, before we move on to the next is,
Sure.
You mentioned that your government was going to, seize the taxes and not add any new ones, because by that time it would have been projected to, sort of like bring down the weight on the debt we had. Do you think if these decisions were proposed maybe in the last budget, it would have put you in a good position to retain power and maybe so you see the change you wanted to see?
The equilibrium is what you must always watch.
Well,
why you couldn't put it in the 2024 budget was because at that time
it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. You still had things you had to pay your way out of. And that is why after that, so there are some of the laws that we put what we call sunset clauses in it.
Okay.
So we introduced a tax and we said that this tax, and then he deliberately said that the one people call the betting tax. That's not what people call betting. The betting tax is the one where if you cut bet where you see on it that
you see on it like they deducted, and yesterday people were still checking. And
it was a deliberate confusion that he created. The one, because yesterday he listed all the laws that he's going to bring to remove the taxes. That one was not in it. The betting tax one was not in it. What he spoke about was Lotto. And that's why Minister Amin, you remember Amin said, that thing that you are calling the betting matter on social media, that, hey, the guy said we never collect betting tax. It's not true. We were collecting better. No, what he meant to say was that the one he referenced, the withholding tax
that was
on
the
Lotto,
lottery tax.
The withholding tax on Lotto. Which he then deliberately said that also known as the betting tax. That one, we never collected. That's the one that the National Lottery Authority was supposed to have been collecting, Sammy's place, which they were not. But as for the normal betting one, that was everybody sees it on their thing.
Yes.
So you will notice that if you look at the list of taxes he said he was going to come and remove, when he gave us the 10 laws that he will come and amend, betting was not part of it.
So you think the youth shouldn't be excited?
No, I think eventually the government
will explain and
will be pressured to include
that
the income tax amendment. I can read you the 10 laws that he said he was coming to amend. It doesn't include income tax amendment. The betting tax is in the income tax amendment. So eventually, I think the government will be pressured to add it to it, and then to come and remove it. So those ones, for example, I think they will come quickly. COVID is going to take a while before they come and remove COVID, despite all they said about it. He says he's now going to do consultations.
He mentioned, I think it's fair enough that there's going to be consultations.
Why?
I think
But they had a national economic dialogue. Haven't they finished the consultation?
I mean, what if it's bigger than...
No, please. What are you saying? Don't go there. I don't want to get into it. No. Because listen, you have spoken a lot against COVID. When we explained that it's to pay for a particular bill, you spoke a lot against it. You've been in power from 7 January. You said if Baumia will remove it,
in 2025, you were going to take it off, right?
Hold on. In 2024, when Baumia said he will remove it, you said that he should remove it now. In fact, you remember that at the time, the minority said, they said that they were going to bring a private member's bill to come and remove it in Parliament. This is 2024. Okay, no problem. We've finished that.
Yes.
Now we are in 2025.
Yes.
You are in power. You say you are now going to do consultation with IMF, and then later you decide on, member.
You see, Honorable, so what I was going to get to was that, I mean, you mentioned that, these things do study human behavior. It's economics, science, exactly. What if what was projected has changed, the dynamics has changed, sorry, and they need to revisit certain
things? That there are a lot of young people who believe that this democracy, Ibibola, it doesn't work because the politicians, they don't tell the truth. They say one thing, they win power, then when they win power, they change their mouth. If you do that, you are feeding into that thinking of some of the young people. When the Burkina military leader came to Independence Square, did you see how the youth were excited to see him? Because a lot of people are losing hope in democracy. That all these democracy politicians, Charlie, be English settings, they're really not doing what they should be doing. You saw the democracy have people, and sometimes how they can get almost violent and agitated. If you keep doing that you tell the people you will take away COVID, and you win and you say, oh, the circumstances have changed, so I'm going to do consultation. You are feeding into that. And that's a risk for all of us. If we ask our parents who lived in cool eras, they'll tell you that in a military era, remember, you can't sit here and do what you are doing now. They will come for you. So democracy is very important for all of us. The freedoms that we enjoy is very important. So we should not do anything that puts it at risk, including this habit where you say something, you win power, then you switch from it and say that because things are so bad. No. You said you were going to take it off. Take it off. And then rather cut expenses. Do you know that right now, now, the expenses that they said they are supposed to be cutting, they are increasing expenses. So I'll give you an example. You remember when they told everybody that the size of the MPP government was too large, and therefore we're spending too much money. And you remember when they came, they've reduced the number of ministers and number of presidential staffers. 3 days ago, I was on GH1 TV and I told the host that, don't worry about that one. Go and look for the budget and look for the salaries in the budget. Do you know that yesterday when they brought the budget, the Office of Government Machinery, which they said was over bloated, under MPP, the salary budget was about 326 million Ghana cedis. All the people who were working for the government, 326 million Ghana cedis.
There are new ones which have been also added, in terms of expenses. The sanitary part bit.
No. I'm talking about the salary.
The salaries.
I'll come to that one. Salary.
There's one that has been included. Honorable.
Salary.
Okay.
You see, and I'm making the point that when you say something, live by it.
Live by it. Honorable.
If you say that there are too many people, do you know the salary they are giving to the reduced number of people in the presidency now?
So that means reducing the number doesn't matter. You can just still cut down on the salaries.
No. In the end, it is how much is costing the taxpayer.
Not how many.
It is how much that is costing the taxpayer. The MPP was paying 326 million as compensation for the Office of Government Machinery. We had 8 institutions or 8 agencies under it. They came and they've reduced it to 4. Can you take a guess on how much they are spending there now? Rev, guess for me. This one, make like quiz. 2.7 billion.
You see,
I'm not sure you
heard
me.
I'm not sure
you heard me.
I heard
2.7 billion.
I heard you. Honorable, so there's a part
I'm saying that we all understand the economics.
If you say we're cutting it down,
if we say we are cutting it down, let's be honest and let's cut it down. Don't tell the young people. There are a lot of young people who have so much hope in this government. Went round singing, demonstrating house to house. The people who were saying queen and other things. They believe that the thing will be cut. Many of them haven't gotten jobs still. Appointment cry they haven't gotten. The budget has gone up to 2.7 billion. And I'm saying that if you say something, be true and fair to it. That's all I'm saying. Let's proceed.
There's a part where there's an allocation for, I think it's for assembly allowances.
Yeah.
These were figures that were not included in the past. If I'm correct,
that's true.
These are new ones. So obviously, the numbers will go up, but that is set aside.
That is not part of what I just discussed with you. This one is Office of Government Machinery, Jubilee House. The 326 million compared to 2.7. That's Jubilee House I'm talking about. The thing about assembly members' allowance. Here's my view on it. When the MPP and the NDC were going into the election, we came up with 2 propositions. The MPP said, if you listen to Dr. Baumia, he said that I agree that we need financing at the bottom to help the assembly members work. What I want to do is that I want to give assembly members a budget to work with. If you're an assembly member, what is the most important thing to you? Is it your own allowance or is it a budget to be able to work in your electoral area? So we said that we will give you what we call the electoral area share of the common fund. So we'll give you a budget so that if streetlights are not working, you have a budget.
And it's from the main budget for the...
Absolutely. You can pick it, you can fix the streetlights there. There's some water here, some school building, the roof is off, you can do it. So we'll give you a budget to work with. The NDC said, no, we prefer to give the assembly member an allowance. Yesterday, when he came to Parliament, he says that he has made provision to give the assembly members an allowance. If you give an assembly member an allowance and he doesn't have a budget to work with in the assembly or at the electoral area,
that means you haven't really empowered them.
Chairman.
Honorable. Right. So let's move on to other matters. Things like the allocation of 203 million for payments to teacher training allowances, steps to resolving the issue of unpaid salaries for pharmacists. I wanted to ask, there seems to be a lot of allowances in arrears for people like the pharmacists. Would you say, is it fair to say that these things were not really looked at because we had bigger debts to take care of? Is it fair to say that? Or where did the money go? Were there not funds allocated for the payments of that?
There was, but you see, the funds that are allocated on paper is money on paper. You now have to generate that money and spend it. So if the generation is struggling, you will have difficulties in honoring your payment obligations on time. That is one of the payment delay. What we have to do is to be honest with ourselves that it is important to step up how we generate revenue. There are a lot of people who are not paying their fair share. Their fair share. I'm not saying people are not paying taxes, but there are a lot of people who are not paying their fair share. And because of that, the state struggles to raise all the revenues it must raise so that it can utilize those revenues. Until that is fixed, you can put some amounts on paper. So like you were referring to earlier, some amount for sanitary pads, some amount for Kokon Kitten and a few other things. But if we don't change the culture of revenue mobilization so that we get the money in the basket, it will remain what my friend Isaac Adongo used to describe as audio money. Money that you have heard in your
but you cannot
ears,
see and feel.
but it's not in your pocket. Because you can make an allocation. If you have not mobilized the money, you will not be able to spend that money. And I think that NDC, MPP, we have to stop sometimes over politicizing revenue measures.
Exactly.
So that, like I said, government doesn't have money. Government has to
make the
raise,
money.
so that we can make the money and spend it.
I was going to move off it, but I have to stay there.
Go.
You just mentioned revenue, the government making money.
Go.
If for some reason we're not able to pay the ones we're supposed to pay, the money that was supposed to be realized, let me take an institution like ECG. After the transition, it came out that, they had a lot in debt. Does this mean some of the government agencies and arms of operation were not able to bring the revenue?
That is true.
As a past government, what are some of the measures you think?
That is partly the problem.
Partly the problem.
So I mean, Charlie, we're all Ghanaians. You have come to power, you're president. You say, I'm going to solve ECG, There's a guy in one of the districts at ECG, and all of us in the studio, let's be honest. There's a guy in one of the districts who is busy working with other people and ensuring that the money that should come to the center is going coming. True or false? True. It's not MPP NDCO.
True.
So in the end, you realize that the money that ECG is supposed to collect and come and pay, there will be a shortfall there. Every time they talk about distribution losses, where do those losses come from? A bit of it is old, obsolete equipment, but a bit of it is inefficiency in the system. So sometimes they are also not able to mobilize what they are supposed to mobilize to come out up to. But that is why I make the point that MPP and DC, we have to come to clarity. All of us, citizens, everybody has come to clarity that, listen, the Yankee way for all the things you see around you. And we must get to that point for all the things you see around you. And we must get to that point where we agree that all these corner things must stop. We must pay our fair share so that the revenue is available, and the government must also use it efficiently to deliver on what it's looking for.
Will it be fair to say the past government was over lenient on some of these institutions? Because at the end of the day, there's a policy that was announced to drive how the budget is spent, to drive how we make money. If for some reason it's not coming, can't there be drastic measures to ensure that, okay, whoever's not effective is taken out when these things done? Because we had just a few of these things from institutions that were supposed to be bringing in money, clearly, who were not doing as they were supposed to do.
Yeah, you have a point there. And there's something that all of us have to come to terms with. This society in which we are right now here at YFM, if somebody chop money where they want to up, one of the things will most likely happen is that one of his uncles, who is maybe some big pastor or some chief, will go and see the GMA big boys who Charlie, but this guy, he's been with us for the last 8 years. He's done so well. This one was an error. Can't we? That's the society in which we are. So in Ghana, somebody does something. I mean, look at what happened in the financial sector. Somebody does something that needs to be dealt with. And before you realize, Charlie, everybody is bringing some big man to come and have a conversation. And if you don't listen, they say, Charlie, but it will be wicked power. Everything they've said, you are not listening. So I think there's a part in what you're saying which is true, but it's a broader conversation that we all have to come to terms with. There needs to be some cultural change.
Exactly.
And it's something we have to engineer. I agree with you.
Thank you so much. The entertainment industry, where you and I are from, is a significant cultural and economic force. However, the 2025 budget that was announced yesterday didn't capture any allocations for the creative industry. Now, the minister, however, explained his administration has departed from the norm, and therefore sector ministers will be responsible for presenting their own detailed reports and plans in Parliament. What is your opinion on this? Is it a step in the right direction?
I think it's a bit strange because, usually what happens is that when you have very big policies and programs, those are the ones that the Minister of Finance will announce as part of the budget. He won't program in there. This is a bit strange that the minister says that he won't, highlight big programs. It's strange. And it makes me wonder whether or not there are big programs in there. So yesterday, I'm interested in sports. I went into the sports part because he didn't say much on it.
Yes, he didn't say much, yeah.
When I went into the sports part, I realized that, for example, they say they will refurbish some sports infrastructure across the country. So then I went into the figures to see if the money is there. There's no money there for infrastructure. I'm wondering if that is why he didn't want to mention those things on the floor, because if somebody goes into it, he'll go and look in the numbers and say, Charlie, the guy, they lie. I don't know if that's why he didn't mention it. We are now going to go into those details in the next 3 weeks or so. But I was a bit surprised that for the first time, a Minister of Finance did not highlight supposedly big programs in various sectors. But he spent a lot of time talking about, he found a debt here and he found a debt here. But he didn't tell you the assets he found in those places as well. It was a bit selective. But anyway, we're all politicians, so sometimes you want to tell
with regards to the debt part, don't you think it was elaborate?
In fact, he came up with some 50 billion debt and said he has added it to our books, and therefore our result is not profit, it's now loss. Essentially, that's what it is.
Are these debts, in your opinion, you are in there, are they non-existent or they do exist?
When he finished, he says that, by the way, he has not checked the debt, so he's now going to check. I didn't say it. It's in the audio. You can play it.
Yes,
he says
I heard it.
He says that it is not audited, so he's now going to audit it. But if it's not audited, why are you adding it and saying that therefore it's a loss? So sometimes the politics gets in the way. And, we should get to a level in our governance where, Charlie, we put some of these things aside, some of this politics. Because right now, everybody can see through the settings. So
yes.
Everybody can see through it. If you say there's 50 billion extra debt that you have found from somewhere, and so the account is no longer profit, it's loss. Because if you add it, then it's loss. Then you turn around and say, but you've not audited it. So what if by the time you audit, it's not 50 billion?
Honorable, based on your words, do you think Ghanaians saw through some of the things that were happening in the past governments? That's maybe why they decided to give a new party.
I was saying on one other station that we didn't do enough settings. We didn't do much of the settings.
But you did some.
In fact, one of the complaints people have about us was that our communication was poor.
And that's because you didn't want to communicate on things that were not realistic.
No, it's not that we didn't want to. Even the good things that we were doing,
you were not saying much about it.
We were not able to cut through the clutter and the noise enough to get our message across. So there were things that we were saying, it was true, but people will not allow you to say it. They will mock you. They will they will troll you on social media. They will cut it all out. And then later, when a new government comes, then they realize that, what they were saying was true. You get my point?
I do get your point.
We didn't even do enough of those ones. But my point is that, listen, these things, they are not important. The Ghanaian public is very sophisticated. Just get on with the work and let the results show them.
Show working. All right, we're wrapping up in a bit, Honorable. I'd want to just take one question from our listeners. Messaging here from 16 Zalafina says, what's happening to our natural resources? Aren't there enough to generate money for us? He has a point with enabling environment to help small businesses grow. So his question is, what is happening to our resources? The gold we have, things that used to generate enough income for us. What's the state now? Don't we have them no more? Don't we have rights and power over it to generate enough, revenue for us as an economy?
We have a lot of natural resources. Unfortunately, we don't have, or we haven't created a system as a country to exploit our own natural resources. So if you look at the legal regime around our resources, they say that the resources are there, but they are held in trust for the people of Ghana by the president of Ghana. So if somebody comes to find gold, he has to come to Minerals Commission for a license to go and mine the gold. Then when he takes his profit, he will give us small out of it. If Ghana wants to benefit from that gold there, then who has to mine that gold? Ghana has to mine that gold. But the capital required to go and mine that gold, Ghana has not been able to put it up. So when the MPP came to power, we set up what we call to raise the capital and invest in gold mining and other resource mining operations. One of the problems they had is that they tried to do a transaction to raise money. That transaction was called the Ijapa transaction. And Charlie, the propaganda and
we had time to actually talk about it, but
all the thing that was created about it, that transaction, they were supposed to raise more money and now invest in the carried and participating interest in mining concessions, which they started. They started investing in a few mines. They were not able to do much of it. Even if there were problems with the Japa transaction and it was suspended. I believe that what should be doing now is that then find a tidier transaction, get it done, so that the objective, which is getting money to invest in mines, so that the message that was sent, we can own our mines and make money, big money from it, will be achieved. The new government that has come says that they are cancelling about 80% of the money that goes to the minerals income and investment. Eventually, they are collapsing it.
I think start taxing other sides
Eventually, they are collapsing it. So where are you going to get money to now own your mines?
Do you think an element like the Japa transaction you mentioned was rejected by Ghanaians because, just like you mentioned, we did a transaction you mentioned, was rejected by Ghanaians because, just like you mentioned, we didn't communicate properly about it?
I think it was partly the problem.
Okay.
It was part of the problem. And then there were a few other problems with the structure of the transaction itself, because people did not even understand the difference between the monetization of mineral royalties and the Japa transaction itself. There was just one transaction under the structure. Even if you had a problem with that transaction, you can cancel that transaction, develop a tidier transaction. But that structure is a good structure. The monetization of mineral royalties is a good structure. That's how you get money to own shares in the big mines. And then part of the big money will be Ghana's money. Until you do that, you won't go far.
Honorable, can we continue on this over the phone sometime soon, please?
Sure.
Because
try and make time.
Yes, I would really love
right
to.
Now, you know, I'm unemployed, so I'm sitting at home. I mean, I only go to Parliament when Parliament is in
when you have to.
I'm unemployed. Call me, I'll come.
What keeps you busy aside, going to Parliament these days? Now that you're out, reading.
Yeah, I'm just reading a book by Tony Blair right now on leadership. Very interesting perspectives from his time as leader. I like reading a lot.
Do you miss being on radio?
Occasionally, I do.
What
sometimes when there's a subject being discussed and I see so many angles and I'm listening and whoever is handling it is not going into those angles, I'm like, Arr. So occasionally I miss it. But occasionally I go on radio.
You go on radio, yes. Yeah. When it stops it, maybe sometimes soon you might sit in here for us.
Charlie, the playlist I'll bring, you won't like it too.
We'll love it. No, we'll love it. Why? We have ears for everything. Honorable, this is one of the comments I picked from, WhatsApp. People are of the opinion that, after you became Minister of Information, you sort of like became very distant from the people. Were these, first and foremost, your opinion, is it true? Were you, in your opinion, distant? If yes, did you have to do that to sort of protect yourself from getting into spaces like, because I really picked a lot from what you said. You don't like to make promises. You don't like to speak on things when they do not exist. Is this the reason why you sort of like stayed away?
Actually, at the risk of sounding boastful, I think I was the most accessible information minister that we had, hopping from radio station to radio station, granting interviews, sometimes even on Twitter, tweeting back at people who were asking questions, etc. I was very accessible as information.
As Minister of Information, you did do press conference.
I was very accessible.
But the thing is, they believe the very present matters you didn't want to touch on. Things come because as Minister of Information,
it's a fair question.
Yes, let's look at a case like this very popular National Cathedral project. People expected to hear from you because if we're going to get information from anywhere, it would be Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. And looking at the journalism background you came from, people expected you to, be forthcoming on these things. Was it regulated? Is it a part of your?
I'm going to do a little test with you to demonstrate my answer.
Quick one. Let's go.
So, you know about SpaceX?
Yes.
Why is SpaceX cheaper than the traditional rocket systems?
Well, because it's funded by an individual?
No.
No?
You are struggling to answer because you don't have the information.
Well, not really.
Yes. If you had the information, you answer it right now. The reason is that SpaceX uses reusable rockets. They can fly it up and bring it back down. In the past, when you fly up a rocket, you have to dispose of it. You can't bring it back up.
And it's because it's because an individual is basically putting that in.
It's a type of technology but the point I want to demonstrate is that if you had this answer, you give it to me easily.
But you don't have the
challenge sometimes is that if you are the spokesperson or information minister, you must first have the information
first
to make it available. Number two, even when somebody calls you and says, Ganj, government is buying this iPhone for all ministers, a smart information minister will ask questions. How much is it? Why are we not buying this?
And that might take a period.
No. If you are not getting the answers that you know the public will ask you, you have not been fully briefed to go out there.
You not put yourself out there and answer based on your own
It's
knowledge.
not that you are refusing to answer or provide information or you are distant. You don't have the information.
You don't have the information.
If you don't have the information, in law, I'm a lawyer. In law, we have an expression we say, nemo dat non quod habet. You cannot give what you don't have. That's a challenge sometimes.
Lovely, love it. So overall, the budgets, I mean, as much as we're not done, over 100, where would you rate it?
I won't mark it. I would like it to mature, let Ghanaians see how it manifests. Let's see if it's delivering on the aspirations of young people and small businesses.
If you're not marking it as a lecturer, maybe you're writing a note on it. Are you writing, come see me in my office?
No.
Or do better?
What I write on it is be careful of settings.
Okay. Yeah, some more. Well, thank you so much.
Rev,
I do appreciate this. You've broken things down.
And the crew.
And the team, yeah. That's Jacob, that's him, that's Daniel, and that's Delphina, the producer. Yes. So Honorable will be back sometime soon. Thank you so much for doing this with us. It's been fun. I love how you realistically broke down things for us, and we love your opinion on this as well.
We'll try.
We will get the conversation going sometime soon. And now we know that you have time. You're best fraud too.
We all seem to be waiting for some big solution, but it ain't coming. Real change isn't big from the start. Small. It starts here. It starts local. Here, we stopped talking about problems years ago. We dig. It's not easy, but it's not complicated either. Whatever challenges arise, local finds a way. Some might say local is small, but local isn't just here. Local is a farmer in Ofinso planting hope with every seed. It's a village in Ghana turning dry land green again. And local is a family in Tachiman harvesting a better future.
We are growing, we are restoring, we are changing.
Slowly but surely.